This is Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel. Click on the subscribe button and listen unlimited audiobooks anytime, anywhere.
Manners for Men by Mrs. Humphry, Chapter 24, Correspondence. It is impolite to leave letters unanswered for several days, especially if the writers are ladies, or, if men, superior in age or station. Notes of invitation should be replied to within 24 hours. Plain white cream-laid notepaper and envelopes should be used, the latter either square or wallet-shaped, but never of the oblong, narrow shape peculiar to business correspondence. The address on the notepaper should be embossed or printed in simple characters, over-ornament being in the worst taste. If the writer is entitled to use a crest, it should be produced as simply as possible, with or without the family motto, and free from the glow of varied color in which some men and women delight. There are letters whose devices in scarlet and gold are strangely in contrast with the meager and disappointing character of their contents. They make one think of fried sprats served up on a gold entree dish. The writing should be clear, neat, and legible, the ink black. In beginning a letter with Sir or Madam, the omission of the name is remedied by inscribing it in the left-hand corner at the bottom of the note. In commercial correspondence, it seems to be the rule to put the name of the addressee just above Dear Sir or Madam. Should it be advisable to enclose in any letter an envelope for a reply, ready addressed, it is not good form to put Esquire after one's own name in addressing it. Married women and widows are not addressed by their own Christian names, but by those of their husbands. For instance, no one versed in social forms would write Mrs. Mary Smith, but Mrs. John Smith. Widows of titled men have their Christian name put before their surname thus: Laura Lady Ledding, Maria Marchioness of Addisbury, Georgina Viscountess Medway, Mary Duchess of Blankton. The unmarried daughters of dukes, marquises, and earls have their Christian name invariably inserted between their courtesy title and a surname, as Lady Mary Baker. When married, they retain this form, only substituting the husband's surname for their own, as Lady Mary Garth. But if their husband should be a peer, they merge their courtesy title in his. The third person in correspondence is falling considerably into disuse, and presenting compliments is almost obsolete. Invitations of a formal kind and their replies are couched in the third person, but for purposes of correspondence with strangers, it is almost always better to use the first person. The exception is in replying to a letter written in the third person, when it is in better taste to reply in the same way. The third person is also used in writing to tradespeople. Mr. Edlicott will feel obliged if Mr. Jones will kindly call on Thursday morning with reference to some repairs. In this case the reply would be written in the first person. Letters of introduction, says La Fontaine, are drafts that must be cashed at sight. They are sometimes difficult to write, especially if they have been asked for, not volunteered. They are always left unsealed, but should there be circumstances about the person introduced which the other party should know, it is well to communicate them in a private letter, which should be dispatched so as to arrive before the letter of introduction is presented. Anyone receiving a letter of introduction would immediately take steps to show some attention to the individual introduced. The usual thing is to ask him to dinner, if he is a social equal, to offer his services, if he should be a superior, and to ascertain in what way one can be useful to him, if he is an inferior. A personal call must precede all invitations. This is a fixed and rigid rule, the exception being in the case of persons presenting their own letters of introduction, as is usually done. But should the person to whom they are addressed be out, the formal call must follow. All ladies from the Queen downwards are addressed in beginning a letter as Madam, all gentlemen from the highest to the lowest as Sir. Tradesmen, however, begin Your Royal Highness, Your Grace, or Your Ladyship, in writing to their titled employers. They also address their letters quite differently, as will be seen from the following instructions. Addresses of letters. Her Majesty the Queen, to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, to Her Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. This same form is used in addressing communications to all other members of the royal family, adding the title where the word Prince or Princess would be incorrect, as To His Royal Highness the Duke of York. To Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York. Below the rank of royalty there is the distinction between the letters addressed by persons on an equality with those to whom formal end they write, and by inferiors. I shall call them formal and informal, and range them in separate lines. Informal. Formal. The Duke of blank. To His Grace the Duke of blank. The Duchess of blank. To Her Grace the Duchess of blank. The Marquis of blank. To the Most Honourable the Marquis of blank. The Marchioness of blank. To the Most Honourable the Marchioness of blank. The Earl of blank. To the Right Honourable the Earl of blank. The Countess of blank. To the Right Honourable the Countess of blank. The Viscount blank. The Right Honourable the Viscount blank. The Viscountess blank. The Right Honourable the Viscountess blank. Lord blank. The Right Honourable Lord blank, or Baron blank. Lady blank. The Right Honourable Lady blank, or Baroness blank. Members of the Privy Council are also addressed as Right Honourable, in the same way as peers. In this case the names of commoners are not followed by the abbreviation Esquire, as the Right Honourable James Balfour, MP. Ambassadors and their wives are addressed as His Excellency, Her Excellency, the personal and official titles following the word as to His Excellency the Earl of blank, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to France. To Her Excellency the Countess of blank. Other official personages are addressed in the following way. To His Excellency Lord blank, Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. To His Grace the Archbishop of blank. The Right Reverend the Bishop of blank. The Very Reverend the Dean of blank. Academical distinctions are indicated by the initials placed after the name. LL.D. for Doctor of Laws and Learning, D.D. for Doctor of Divinity, and so on. So much for the envelopes. The proper way to begin letters is as follows. As I have mentioned, the Queen is addressed as Madam in the inside of a letter. A gentleman writing to the Queen would sign himself, I have the honour to submit myself with profound respect, Your Majesty's most devoted subject and servant. Above the word Madam should be written, Her Majesty the Queen. Lord Beaconsfield struck out a line of his own, and in writing to the Queen began, Mr. Disraeli, continuing in the third person and addressing Her Majesty in the second. The Prince of Wales is addressed as Sir, above this word being written, To His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. Persons on intimate terms sometimes begin Sir or Dear Prince, others My Dear Prince. The Princess of Wales is occasionally addressed by friends as My Dear Princess. The two orthodox endings to such letters are respectively Your Royal Highness's dutiful and obedient servant, or a humbler style, Your Royal Highness's dutiful and most obedient servant. To all other royal princes and princesses the ending would be Most humble and obedient servant. Dukes other than royal are addressed inside letters by intimates as Dear Duke, by others My Lord Duke, may it please your grace. In writing to a duchess her title is placed above the Madam. In formal letters Marquise would be addressed as My Lord Marquis. A very common form of mistake is that of omitting the Christian name from the courtesy titles of the sons and daughters of dukes, marquises, and earls. The sons have the title Lord prefixed to the Christian and surname, for instance, Lord Alfred Osborne, Lord Henry Somerset. It is extremely incorrect to call either of these Lord Osborne or Lord Somerset. The daughters of dukes, marquises, and earls have the title Lady before their Christian and surname. Lady Emily Heneage, for instance, must not be addressed as Lady Heneage. Should she marry a commoner, only the surname is altered. The Lady Emily remains. This may all appear a little involved to those unaccustomed to titles, but neglect of these forms indicates very clearly a lack of savoir-faire. It is a source of great annoyance to the owners of courtesy titles to have the Christian name omitted. Anybody, even a knight's wife, may be a Lady Smith or Jones. The insertion of the Christian name before the Smith or Jones means that the possessor is the daughter of a duke, marquis, or earl. In beginning a letter to any of the above, a stranger would say, Dear Lady Mary Smith, but the usual form would be Dear Lady Mary. Inferiors would begin by writing the lady's title over the word Madam, or merely beginning Madam and writing the title at the end of the letter. In writing to an ambassador or his wife, the title is placed above the word Sir or Madam. Inferiors would write, May it please your Excellency, and would conclude with, I have the honour to be your Excellency's most humble, obedient servant. In writing to an archbishop, a correspondent would begin, Your Grace, ending, I remain your Grace's most obedient servant. To a bishop, the form would be, My Lord, or Right Reverend Sir, or May it please your Lordship, the last being, of course, the humblest form of address. The conclusion would be, I remain, My Lord, or Right Reverend Sir, your most obedient servant. The beginning of a letter to a dean would be, Reverend Sir, or Mr. Dean, the title of all these dignitaries being, in formal letters, indited above the beginning. Those having slight acquaintance would begin, Dear Mr. Dean. Strangers would end the letter, I have the honor to be your most obedient servant. Doctors of divinity are addressed as Reverend Sir, as well as archdeacons and all other clergy. Intimates would begin letters to the above with Dear Archbishop, Dear Bishop, Dear Dean, or Dear Doctor. With the sole exception of lieutenants in the army, all officers have their military rank prefixed to their name. Ensigns and lieutenants are addressed as Esquire. In the Navy, admirals of the flag, white, blue, or red, are addressed as the Honorable, this being prefixed to the name. Otherwise, a letter would begin Sir and end, I remain, Sir, your obedient servant. Commodores, captains, and lieutenants in the Navy are all addressed in the same way. End of chapter 24.
This was Audiobook Caboodle YouTube channel presentation. For full audiobook, check out our playlist section. Links in description below.